All right, everyone, we should be live, which of course means there's some kittying going on here. Yes, there are two cats, and they don't always get along. Let me make sure that we're live over here on Rumble as well. Give me a moment. I'm doing the best that I can, boomer as I am. Bunch of clanking already. By the way, we do have breaking news with regards to the Bosphorus, with regards to Turkey and its interactions with Russia. That'll be newsworthy. I would put it in the link, but I can't. Let's see. Come on, Rumble. You know you want to go live. We've got Rumble news as well. We got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. Not always about Ukraine, although mostly, you know, it's mainly what people are looking at. Come on. Let's see if we are live. Please stand by. Come on. You can do it. You can do it, new tech. Yes, indeed, we're live on Rumble. Okay, good. Let me go down to chat. Okay, so we have a full slew today. There will be Super Chat Q&A, so if you do send Super Chats, I will try to get to them all. Occasionally, I miss one. I'm sorry, especially if it's on Rumble. They still haven't fixed their chat thing where it goes all the way down to the bottom anytime someone leaves a new chat. It's a big problem. They need to take care of that. That's probably the biggest problem on the site for anyone that streams, actually. Of course, we have updates on Ukraine. That's the big thing that people are caring about right now. As of not that long ago, Turkey has closed the Black Sea to Russian ships. Now, Russia already has ports there. But the thing is, a lot of Russia's ships are not in the Black Sea. Now, Black Sea is its warm water ports. And then it also has, of course, ports up in the North Sea and on the Pacific. Those ships will not be able to enter the combat zone at this point. It's a huge escalation, actually, by a NATO member, Turkey, hosts U.S. nuclear weapons. It's funny because Erdogan loves to straddle the line. Like they shot down, I think, a Russian jet a couple of years ago over the Syria crisis. It invaded their airspace. They shot it down. There were a couple of dust-ups there. But at the same time, Turkey also says, well, we don't have any problem with Russia. We don't want these sanctions. I guess this time it was a little bit too deep for them. But we have numerous updates with regards to Ukraine. We also have to talk about Ketanji Brown, which was chosen as the replacement for Stephen Breyer on the Supreme Court. I can't give my full thoughts about that on a stream that is also on YouTube. You can go to any of the other sites that I use. Again, keep in mind, links in the description of this live stream to other sites that I use. I made a video this morning on my thoughts of the subject. I have to keep it a little bit less frank if it's on YouTube because YouTube is hyper-censored China style, but I will cover that in general. Also, we are close to overtaking Infowars on Rumble as far as subscriber count. Now, I like Infowars. I talked to Alex Jones once, although I think the show was taken down, actually, which is regrettable. I don't have a problem with Infowars, but I consider it a friendly competition with literally everyone else who creates content. Friendly, as opposed to how I view CNN. We've got other things to talk about, too. Link in the description, cross-platform, archived, of course. Do you remember that time that Biden was begging China to help with regards to Russia? It was only a few days ago. The New York Times actually broke a story saying that Joe Biden had gone to the Chinese and said, look, the troops are building up on the border. It's a big problem. Can you please help us? Will China, the main bankroller of Russian policy, will you help us to avert crisis and catastrophe? Will you please help us? And I'm thinking to myself, imagine if Trump were president and it came out that he was begging a country to backstab, which is what it would be, its main ally, at least in the military sense. People would go nuts. People would go crazy. So Biden has really screwed the pooch on that one. I'll get to a few super chats here. because I think there are already a few. I'll try to find them. I'm doing the best that I can. Opinionated Junkie on YouTube. Dumb question. Is China and North Korea in league? Mostly. But keep in mind the North Koreans have also made anti-Chinese propaganda in the past. Will Kincaid. Is there anything the Biden admin does that they don't completely fail at? Well, they did get an infrastructure bill, although it was watered down beyond use to pedal to the left. I'll answer no. I can't think of any particular successes that weren't strictly partisan, so I guess not. Spider Eternal, best Vermont maple syrup brand. All of them, as long as they're made in Vermont, legitimately. Josh Palillo, Clank for Ukraine. Yes, spoons out for their president, who is actually in the battle zone at the moment near Kiev. Some random bloke, will this be the end of Russia? Not sure he thought this one out. Oh, he did. He realizes the West is weak and can't really intervene. But if the Ukrainians fight hard enough for long enough through attrition, technically speaking, they could win. That would be a huge blow to Russia. If that happens, and we can't predict it, but if it does, look for Biden and other Western leaders to say that they had a major hand in it happening. They'll use it for political leverage. It'll be disgraceful, and Zelensky will come out probably and tell him to fuck off. But Westerners won't hear that from the legacy media. They'll just gloat. Not a banned account. Will America issue Fed cryptocurrency this year? I don't know. They definitely want to, which I warned of several years ago. In the wake of Facebook trying to develop, what was it called, Libra coins or something, getting huge Fortune 500 companies aboard. You remember when the government told them to knock it off? And despite the fact that Zuckerberg is a major donor to Congress, he has senators and representatives in his pocket, governors as well. At that point, it became clear that they wanted to be the ones to develop the alternative to the true Wild West style free market that is crypto. Outas 85. Is Russia doing this for all the obvious reasons, i.e. empire, response to NATO, etc., or is there a non-obvious explanation involving long-term and China? It's impossible to tell for certain. My thought is that initially Russia probably did just want to grab up the eastern provinces and was hoping that the buildup would dissuade the Ukrainians. Not a NATO member. He was hoping that Zelensky would back down. When that didn't happen, he decided a full-on invasion. The problem now is that if they march on the capital, and they are attempting, it appears, to do so, they might try regime change, turning all of Ukraine back into a Russian puppet, which it was before 2014. 2012, I believe it was. Goose Bert. Everyone seems to be on Team Ukraine, even the media, which makes me skeptical about taking sides. Have you taken a side, Sticks? I take the side of America first and against war. And so I criticize Biden. I think that Biden and NATO and others have screwed the pooch with regards to the issue. There were solutions, and they weren't used. We projected weakness, not we like you and me, but we as in the U.S. government, the Western governments. Now the Germans are taking the fore, which is apocalyptic. Germany versus Russia. What could possibly go wrong? I don't have a side in the general sense because the people will die on all sides. But Ukraine is a sovereign nation. I don't believe the Rusky Boo bullshit about, well, NATO's CIA assets overthrew the government there. It's an illegitimate regime. It was illegitimate before. It was a Russian puppet. That's why that happened. Not everything is the result of the CIA. Believe it or not, sometimes people actually do revolt against non-Western powers, and it is actually organic. Believe it or not, they don't always have to be paid for that to happen. Not a banned account. Would it be possible to physically summon Stolas? No, I think that Stolas and other similar entities appear to who they want to. My second nephew sent $5. No chat, thank you. Double Gee, what kind of exercise do you do? Are you lifting or doing cardio? 1 rep max for bench or deadlift. I just go for walks. I like to garden as well. You can get swole doing that if you really want to. Although right now there's a little courtyard square out back. It's not big enough to really do any heavy gardening. That will probably change in the future. I want lots and lots of tomatoes. I make my own tomato sauce, and it's better than your Italian grandma's. The Great Scalzini, given the great recent New York Times story and non-willingness to sanction Russian oil industry, has Biden snatched defeat from the jaws of victory prior to Soto? It's possible. He's not doing too well. Although polling won't catch up until after the State of the Union, I can't give a proper measure of it. On the one hand, you've got the wartime president approach. That typically helps. On the other hand, you've got the major diplomatic failure aspect, which typically really hurts. I can't tell you which of those stories will prevail in the public consciousness. It's impossible for me to judge at this time. It's unfortunate, too. I mean, everyone should be against his response because his response is bullshit. But there are people that are partisan. Evelyn A., what are your thoughts about the Azov Battalion? I do not care that they are supposedly white supremacists. That never compelled me before. I wouldn't care who they're fighting. A person's ideology matters less than the actions. Maga Daniel G. I would have never thought that advance into Ukraine would be so slow. Putin has shown that Russia would be a paper tiger if it wasn't for their nukes. Well, they can't use the nukes. It's a non-nuclear state. It appears to have been slower than planned. That is true. Whether or not he prevails remains to be seen. It is possible the Ukrainians do maintain their sovereignty, maintain their independence. It's not entirely clear Russia will win. To be clear, the Polish are funneling enormous amounts of ammo into the region. If Russia does lose, it'll be egg on their face. And again, if that does happen, watch for the U.S. leadership to take credit for what other people have done. Let's get to a little bit of news here, though. Before I get to the rest of the super chats, I know that they're mounting up and I'll fall behind. We do have to talk about several important issues. The first is a major news update. The Turkish government has closed the Bosphorus to Russian ships. Russian ships are no longer capable of navigating in and out of the Black Sea. While that means that their green water, mostly Black Sea fleet, is still there during a land invasion, so ships a little bit less important. It does mean that they can't funnel any resources into the south of Ukraine or areas adjacent using the Bosphorus. They're not allowed to do so. That is major. It's a major blow to the Russians, to be clear. And that comes from Turkey. I know it's a NATO member hosting U.S. nukes, but Erdogan has a cult of personality thing generally going on. Excuse the cat, please. And couldn't be counted on to do this, but he did in the end. So, I mean, it's good news for, the Western countries. It's good news for Ukraine. And also, off of the subject of Ukraine, we will talk briefly now about Ketanji Brown. This is Biden's pick to replace Stephen Breyer on the Supreme Court. I will carefully limit my language here because this live stream is on YouTube and Twitch. But I made a video about it. Again, there's a pinned comment, by the way, on YouTube to a post about Anomaly. You can go and spoon clank because it'll be hilarious. People saying that I was the best commentator on Ukraine, which I think that I am. But I mean, of course, he hates me. He's, shit posted about me 2 or 3 times now after blocking me on Twitter like a coward. So we'll see what happens there. But we'll get to Ketanji Brown first. This is non-Ukraine news. Ketanji Brown was not chosen due to the content of her character. I'll put it that way. With the exception of the fact that she will exactly echo Breyer in everything that she does. Stephen Breyer, 99% of the time, fit with the leftoid justices on the Supreme Court, people like Kagan and stuff. Switching him out for someone who is effectively chosen due to race and gender, which Biden promised to people. It's explicit. That was explicitly why Ketanji Brown was on, the short list. Does not matter. As I pointed out this morning, Republicans should simply not show up for the hearings. Don't ask questions. Don't debate. Don't do anything. There's nothing you can do to stop the nomination unless the Democrats completely hold the line. And there are a couple that may spike the nomination and demand that something else be done. You're not going to play a role in that. Since there's nothing you can do to stop it, my advice is to not engage with the situation at all. Talk about everything else. Talk about the border, inflation, gun control, and certainly the Ukraine situation, Biden's weakness in general. Don't even bother getting drawn into it. It's a distraction. It's a trap. Ignore it completely. Also, we got to talk about Rumble. I am live on Rumble right now, and let me refresh this because then I can see how many people are watching. You have to do that periodically, or you can't see. Yeah, there's almost 400 people watching. All of you on Rumble, please do share out the link cross-platform to as many people as you can. We're poised to overtake Infowars. That is one person with a webcam sitting in his living room is poised to overtake Infowars on a very, very important new tech site. I like Infowars. I like Alex Jones too. I don't think that he's a problem. I don't think that he's got anything wrong with him. Spoke with him actually once, was on his show. But it's a friendly competition. Again, as opposed to what I would have with MSNBC or CNN or that he would have with NBC News or something. Friendly competition, but it is competitive. Of course, we all want more of an audience for ourselves. So share it out. Get your clank on, get your spoons out, and go do what you do best. I trust my fans more than any other fan base in the world. The proof is in the pudding. We'll go back to some super chats here, now that we got that out of the way. Let me see. What do we have? Hi, Leaf11. Hey, man, love your videos. Have a question. What is the likelihood that China will go after Taiwan, and how will the gun debate be talked about after this? Civilians were given guns to help fight the Russians. Think MDA will freak. I strongly support giving automatic and heavy weaponry to all American citizens. In fact, I think that it should be mandatory that when you go out, you have a weapon. Everyone should have a firearm at all times if they're a member of the militia, which means that they are of the age of majority, 18 years old, between then and senescence. They should be forced to have a weapon at all times. Instead of checking for masks or QR codes for your COVID status, we should do that with guns. Oh, you own a 380? Okay. Hey, have you got it on you? Yeah. Okay. You can go into the store. Oh, you left it at home. Go back, get your gun, and then come back to the store. I think it's a great idea. Arm everyone. There's nothing more dissuasive towards foreign invasion and domestic tyranny. As far as Taiwan goes, I would say you got to understand Taiwan's an island. Russia's land troops are pretty good. Russia's got a lot of tanks, a huge amount of APCs and things like that. I think the most artillery of any country in the world. They're capable of staging a land invasion. They're still, by the way, having some problems, it appears, in Ukraine, although we're not 100% sure. China's Navy is second rate. Their aircraft carrier has a ramp and almost sank into the harbor when they first launched it. They don't have the naval capability to do a mass troop landing on Taiwan. They would have to bombard them relentlessly, establish a beachhead that was completely scored and depopulated, and then move in their troops in a more slow fashion. My message to the people of Taiwan is arm up. Force your government to scrap the concept of gun control and arm every citizen preemptively. Arm everyone, establish armories, establish defensive perimeters, and establish a civilian militia. I realize all of the young males in Taiwan have basic military service, and a lot of the females too, medicine and radio and stuff. You need more than that. If you get attacked by China and the West doesn't come to your aid, I know Japan probably would because there's a defense treaty, and they've got one with Australia. That's, by the way, that trilateral capability probably could defeat China anyway. You'll take less casualties if your own civilians are well armed, because China wouldn't dare. Their civilians aren't allowed to have so much as a bamboo staff. They're not allowed to have a sharpened knife without the permission of Xi Jinping. Your civilians should have fucking machine guns. Let everyone have as many weapons as they want. Weapons are great, by the way. Have you ever done basic plinking? It's fun. You know, set up little target ranges, have people go plink. Little kids can use BB guns and shit like that. Let them do it too. L Max, what's your favorite Dutch food? You like the mayo? Yeah, mayo is all right, I guess, although I'm more of a ketchup fan overall. We were watching actually, was it Townsend's, I think, the other night, Liz and myself, Revolutionary War era food. And they made a sauce with mushrooms, actually. Mushrooms and some herbs and other things. It looked delicious, by the way. Definitely the sort of thing you'd want to put on a steak. My favorite Dutch food, Stampot. It's sort of like a cottage pie. It's sort of like a shepherd's pie, cottage pie thing, except there's speck, which is little bits of pork, bacon, It uses Undivy, which is actually a cultivar of the chicory plant, if I remember correctly. It's grown in France and certain other places. I think it's delicious. Some people think it has a slightly bitter flavor, but I don't have the gene to taste that bitterness. To me, it tastes almost like iceberg lettuce, and I could probably swap it out with that, and it would be about the same. A little bit of crunch, a lot of nice garlicky, buttery potato, and you've got that pork flavor, so it's perfect. Some people put onions in. We generally don't. It doesn't really need that. Just a few dashes of onion powder, in the potatoes, basically. Double Gee, where does the first nuke land if they fire one off? Well, that's the problem. You don't just fire just one. You'd be firing hundreds of them. I don't think that will happen over Ukraine, thankfully. Again, much as it would be funny to glow in the dark without having to join the CIA, I don't believe that will actually occur. UP Gardner, $5. No comment, thank you. Not a banned account. Has Stolas ever physically appeared before you? Yes, I told the story about that when I was about 4 years old. I saw this particular, people term it a demon, but I say entity, with my own eyes. And I know that it was real. It was not a dream. It was not a hallucination or anything like that. I know what I saw. And since then, I just happened to be interested in the things that Stolas happens to teach about. And so I decided to create a sort of literary journey tied to that. Seems to be working. Tom McMorrow, commies are drawn to the philosophy of the loser's tantrum because it plays to the resentment resulting from their abiding insurmountable mediocrity. I would say sub-mediocrity. Socialists have mediocrity. Communists have intolerable levels of sub-mediocrity. We've got to get it right here. Inquisitor Jack, anyone who demands Americans be disarmed while cheering other countries arming their citizens shouldn't be allowed to stay in America. Well, they shouldn't be holding office, but their constituents are morons, so they'll keep re-electing people like Pelosi. Yeah, it is kind of funny, though, to see far leftists say, well, they're handing out AK-47s to the population. Hail Ukraine, fight the evil Ruskies, the evil supposedly right-wing Russians, a right-wing country where the president has the unilateral power to nationalize any key industry without any legislative consent. That's considered right-wing economics now. Okay. Yes, absolutely. We should arm the population. Everyone should have to have a gun. They should arguably have to carry it everywhere they go. Keep it maintained. Random inspections, just like random mask inspections. Draven Oaklost, have you heard the rumor that Putin is taking over U.S. biolabs in Ukraine? Any thoughts on this theory? Possible. But then again, keep in mind there's also the theory, and I use that in a loosest sense, that Putin has taken over Chernobyl and that now there's excessive gamma rays. Other than the possibility that a small concrete-covered dome was hit with an RPG or something and some radioactive dust got out, I don't believe that, because Putin, while he may be goofy, I don't think is absolutely balls to the wall batshit insane. What he's doing here fundamentally makes sense. He waited until NATO had no central leader. He waited till the U.S. was led by a vegetable, and then he decided to invade. Like should have been foreseen coming for almost the last decade. They already invaded Crimea, and by the way, the sanctions won't stop him. We already tried that. He invaded, straight out, flat up, invaded Crimea, took it over, annexed it, made it part of Russia, and nobody in the West did anything beyond short and intermediate term sanctions. Well, what the fuck is he afraid of? Oh no, they kicked me out of SWIFT for the next 6 months. I'll have to rely upon the Chinese money I'm already getting. Oh my God, how will we ever survive? Sherman Ader, thanks for your content. Well, you're welcome. Your mother was a hamster. Just wanted to say I love seeing you pet the cat while you're talking, like that Bond villain Blofeld. Please wish me a happy birthday, as I'm obviously old as fuck. Well, happy birthday, your mother was a hamster. Be more profound if it was your real name, but yeah. Adonis Adams, how do you fight back against wokeism and racism? You stop playing their game. Because those two, which are inseparable, they try to stage things as though they have moral superiority and then force you in a subjugate manner to argue against them based on the premises they themselves have created. So just create different premises, because their premises are horseshit. The great Scalzini, when politicians say such things as our democracy, our values, and our way of life, they're used as exclusive terms applying to them. Thoughts? Yeah, when politicians use terms like that, watch out, because they're usually trying to start a war or get you to pay more taxes, if you're lucky. Tyler, Chinese aircraft have entered Taiwan airspace. Think they're going to make their move? No, there's no evidence of a naval buildup, which would be required. They've done that before. Russia, by the way, does that. The U.S. does that to Russia and China as well. We've done that with our naval groups. We've sailed them through areas China explicitly claims, and nothing happens. Taiwan is not afraid of a handful of sorties. What they'd be afraid of is if all of a sudden 1,000 Chinese fishing vessels were armored and they were filling with troops along the shore. We would get plenty of advanced warning, much more than we got with Ukraine. Erlen, hey Sticks, could you discuss the divide in left between breadtube, tanky Maupin types, and Jimmy Dore leftists, especially on Ukraine? Yeah, it's funny, the breadtubers actually seem to have sided with Ukraine. Maupin is a Russian shill. He literally works for RT part-time. He's very, very open about this. He's bragged. He tried to get into it with me and bragged like, Sticks, I've been on television. Like, it fucking impresses me as the funniest fucking shit in the world. And then the Jimmy Dore left is like sometimes sane, sometimes insane. But all of these leftist groups are insane economically. To be clear, they have different diplomatic and sort of social beliefs, and some of them distinguish themselves as having reason with regards to them. None of them have any reason with regards to economics. One cannot be a leftist and understand basic economics. Joe Biden's dentures. You have recently proven the willingness to listen to Clankdom via the NFT fiasco. Hear us now. Sticks garden gnome, like printing money, my guy. I have thought about something limited edition like that just as a joke. Plushies were the other one. That was the original meme. Garden gnomes came second. C is for classified. Sticks, Woodstock, Vermonter, wishing you a great sugaring season. Ah, yes, I grew up in Woodstock, Vermont. Really nice little village. Supposedly a town, I think, but not really. Ever go to Billings Farm? I always thought that was fun. Most fun you can have in Woodstock is if you are wealthy. If you're not wealthy, when I was a kid, the fun was going to the library because they actually had an internet connection. Georgy Georgiev. Does not matter if the ghost of Kiev is real. He became a symbol of resistance, but we do have real heroes. We already know 100% that 13 of Snake Island, the young soldier that sacrificed himself blowing a bridge. Yes, the latter absolutely confirmed. The former, I did see some people claiming that was actually false. And there's no way for me to tell. I mean, I'm not there on Snake Island. But yes, the ghost of Kiev might very well be real. There may actually be a Ukrainian pilot and a MiG fighter there downing Russians. But there's no way to know. Not unless you are the pilot or someone directly connected with them in communication with them. And this is the fog of war sort of thing that happens. And so I caution people, okay, it's a symbol. A symbol can be just propaganda. It does not have to be real. Philip C. Sandoval, Brother Sticks, when would you come out with a song again? Last time you did was more than 5 years ago. Actually, it's not. It's, I think, 3 years ago. I just remembered. I don't know why. Thanks so much for the amazing work you always do. Well, thank you very much, although it was not 5 years. I did stuff, I think, with Gifts Ungiven 3 years ago. I did some solo material on I can't even remember the fucking Fat Hawaiian Man, that channel. One of my secondaries there. I did that a couple years ago. Malik Artorian. Hey, Sticks, hey, postmodernism is getting old. Any ideas on what the name of the next literary movement should be? I know I like new sincerity. Postmodernism is dumb. How about retro nostalgia, which it seems a lot of people have. AE, hey Sticks, what's the likelihood there will be a draft? Biden seems unhinged enough to demand one, I think. There won't be a draft. 0% possibility unless there's a nuclear conflagration, and then you have bigger problems. So, Raisin, I work in defense research, and from what I've seen and heard, China's Navy is not currently second rate. They've essentially defanged our carriers and have much faster modular naval force. I would strongly disagree based on their overall capabilities, as well as their naval manpower. And keep in mind as well, the ability to move into the Taiwanese region would also bring them within striking distance of anti-ship systems, of which there are quite a few in Taiwan. It's not like Ukraine, which is mostly landlocked. Yes, they have Black Sea access, but most of Ukraine is inland. Taiwan's just an island. Totally different priorities militarily. Josh Eternal, if Ukraine wins, what's the world-wide aftermath? Putin is humiliated. Biden tries to take credit, probably fails because he'd have nothing to do with it. Eastern Europe would remilitarize, but that's a given at this point, the Polish, the Hungarians. The aftermath would be similar, except that Ukraine wouldn't become a Russian puppet. Tor Theo, 50-50 ketchup and mayo used for prawn or salmon. Yes, a 50-50 mix of that is good. It's good on French fries, too. Chico Cortez. Imagine Sticks in charge of the NRA. David Hogg would shit himself. Yeah, I would say get rid of the NFA and bring back mail-order machine guns. And real assault weapons, you know, with select fire. And all that cool shit. Everyone should have incendiary rounds as well. Bring forth the dragon's breath. Inquisitor Jack, given the intellectual and moral consistency of the gender Marxists or feminists, I'm happy to see all the protests against only men being conscripted. I don't think that anyone should be conscripted. I realize that in the sense of the Ukraine, they may consider it necessary, but it shouldn't be happening at all. There shouldn't be a war in the first place. Michael D'Angelo, my dad, a former army colonel, says the Russian military has a horrible widespread drinking problem and most are forced to serve. Thoughts? I think that Russia has a widespread drinking problem, although I imagine this is also the case in Ukraine, so it's even Stevens on that one. Yes, a lot of people are conscripted, but that's the case with a lot of militaries in the world. The Grizzly, do you think that independence will fall for the Trump-caused Russia to invade because reasons narrative, or are most people who aren't straight-up blind idpol retards off the Biden bus for good? Thankfully, I think the latter. I think that people have seen through it because they've immediately pivoted. In the last 24 hours, they've pivoted away from the Trump did this thing into the just Putin is a Nazi thing. Then they have to talk about the Azov battalion, and it becomes problematic for them. Justin, do you think the fourth wave feminists got drafted, there'd be a marriage increase, baby boom, and stop man-hating and take on more traditional roles? No, I think that some people we have to give up is too far gone. Highleaf 11, so what knowledge can you say, my friend in Hawaii who says gun control works even though he lives on an island and is a communist? Well, if he's a commie, then there's no reasoning with him. I would point out that there are multiple leftoid creators now that are against gun control. So find one of them and refer your friend to that material. They'll be able to explain it better than me because they would just consider me a Nazi probably. The Crappy Robot, my huge fear right now is that our military hasn't had enough diversity training to prepare them for this moment. Yes, with General Milley talking to the Chinese, apparently, again, I'll talk about this. Apparently, the Biden admin thought that attempting to get China to stop Russia from invading was a good idea, giving them intel that was then directly shared with the Russians. Where the administration is not playing with a full deck, they're not even playing with a card, they're playing checkers. It is clear that Joe Biden doesn't know what he's doing. His top generals don't know what they're doing. They should all be fired. The Grizzly, also important message to follow. Clankers use hyphens, not hyphens. I can't fucking remember what those are called. To avoid censorship, like Biden lost the election due to fraud and Russia invaded because Brandon is a cucked loser. Well, the latter is allowed. The former is not. I disavow your comment officially due to YouTube's terms of service. Adonis Adams, how do you study politics? I keep up with the news, mostly from independent sources and analysis. I took political science in college, though, so that helped. Anthropology, though, helped more. Because once you study linguistic anthropology and get into the propagandistic side of it, you understand more what's going on generally within the news. But you can't interpret the news if you don't realize that 80% of the time you're being completely lied to. Most people don't know lie by omission and lie by structure even exist. DD2225, internet personality Mr. Obvious may have killed himself because of depression from going broke and homeless because of YouTube demonetization bullshit. Yeah, YouTube loves it when independent creators off themselves. They're trying to replace us with Netflix content. Gojira98, hey Tarl, encourage you to research Carl Schmidt. I have heard that name. Robert Jenkins, I have a cabin in North Hero, Vermont. You ever been there? I don't know. I'm not sure if I've been to North Hero. David Deacon, Tom Selleck for POTUS. Yeah, that'd be funny. It'd be better than Biden. Seeing Sights, do you support an Article 5 convention of the states? If you mean a constitutional convention, depends on the purpose, but generally, yeah, it's illegal. There's nothing wrong with it legally. Inquisitor Jack, I'm against conscription as well. If a government cannot convince citizens to voluntarily fight for it, that government deserves to go. That means most governments deserve to go. I strongly agree. By the way, please don't send any more super chats because I think I still got quite a pile to plow through here. The Arcadian 300, is there any hope for the West? Mass migration, Marxism, school propaganda, a rising China, growing Western authoritarianism. Do you see any hope for us? Yes, major hope. Populism will have a resurgence because of what's going on now. The school propaganda and Marxism is falling by the wayside and convincing people to be anti-leftoid. And China may rise for a while, but it's full of hot air like a hot air balloon. I've said that China's a paper dragon for years, and I stand by that. Deep purse, but ultimately at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. Dylan98, I read that Russia's population is in a demographic collapse, and Russia wants to conquer and station their troops in geographic barriers. Thoughts? I think that much of the more developed world has a demographic collapse. I don't think that that would be the reason why, no. Justin, what do you think of the LP Spike Cohen being proved wrong when he said Russia wouldn't invade Ukraine? He did make a video apologizing for being wrong. However, I think he makes the LP look bad. Well, the Libertarian Party does make itself look bad, but they do that on their own without regard to any singular member. So no further thoughts. Even Stevens, don't be bringing my name into this. Gojira98, Occupy Dems defending arming of Ukrainian citizens show they don't care about gun accessibility as long as it isn't in the wrong types of people. Yes, they strongly support actual weapons of war in any hands that aren't domestic because they live in penthouses and they want their private security with their Glocks to be better armed than the surrounding people. Laser Shark Sushi, Mitt Romney passed on AWB in 2004 in Massachusetts as governor. The man says he'll protect Utah and U.S. gun rights. How has he not been called out on his bad record? Mitt Rommel is a moron and a goddamn hobgoblin. How anyone takes him seriously at this point is beyond me. There's no way to call him out any further than he already has been. He's a loser in every possible sense of the word. Heavy Water Trad, Hillary spying, laptop, election, Kufkov, war, zero accountability. Yeah, things do flow. I mean, it is amazing how people have also forgotten about the truckers in Canada and multiple other domestic issues because of what's happening in Ukraine. And it happens right before the State of the Union. How coincidental. Black Magic, $5. No comment, thank you. And yes, I do call him Mitt Rommel. The Twitch stream is ahead of the YouTube one. LMAO, says DJ Diarrhea YouTube. By the way, again, to those of you on Rumble, please do share out the link, almost 1,000 of you, because we are trying to overtake Infowars. Again, a friendly competition only. I have no problem with Alex Jones or Infowars in general or any of the people there. It's just, you know, I'm a content creator. I'm the head of Clankdom. I've got to do these things. And also a pinned comment for those of you on YouTube. In chat, go to that post if you have a Twitter account and leave some clanking for Anomaly, just for the hell of it, just for the lulz. He's attacked me 2 or 3 times since blocking me like a coward. So I figured, you know, what's good for the gander is good for the goose, right? Forum, you made a comment on lying through omission and structure. What books do you recommend on this? I've mentioned it in multiple posts on Substack. I don't know that there's a book on it, but they're logical fallacies, the types of lying. Lie by omission is there's big news and you just don't talk about it. You don't want people to hear about it. There's no way to spin it. The legacy media does this. It's like none of them wanted to talk about the Durham probe's indictment of people related to Clinton. They simply didn't cover the story. There was no way to make it sound good. It took them about 48 hours to cover it at all. And by then they had circled the wagons, I'm sure in coordination with the Biden admin, and said, well, it's actually not true because Durham said this one word that doesn't quite mean what it means and stuff like that. Lie by structure is I tell you what I want you to think in the title of the article. Let's say I make an article. It's 5 paragraphs long, fairly short. The title says what I want you to think. The subtitle reiterates it and slightly expands upon it. In the first paragraph, you'll get the juicy things that I want you to subjugate to that idea and remember. You're probably not getting to the 5th paragraph. Now, if I'm not being completely dishonest, I may have to say something that effectively contravenes what I've told you in the title. I put it at the end of the article, no matter how important it is. 99% of the people that read the article at all will only go through the first paragraph. Most people won't even read that. They're seeing the recap on Twitter. It's 200 characters. They see the title, the subtitle, and maybe a sentence or 2, if they're lucky, of the first paragraph. And that's it. I tell them what I want them to remember there. They think that they've understood the news. They will spread that vociferously. Oh my God, did you hear the news? Donald Trump paid hookers to piss on the Obama's bed because he was mad at them. Then in the 3rd or 4th paragraph where I say, well, this isn't corroborated. We have no evidence of this. And there are deep issues about the source. You never heard about that. You've already absorbed your truth. It just happens to not be true. It's a lie by structure. Seeing sites. What would you support legislation allowing U.S. weapons to the Ukraine? Yeah, I support selling U.S. weapons to everyone. I don't care who buys them. I just want to make sure those same really great weapons get sold to the U.S. public. Yes, that means rockets, machine guns, explosives. I don't give a fucking shit. Philip Malone sent $1. No comment, thank you. Guam Tech, what's the best way to not get blackpilled with all the crazy stuff from the past week? I feel like stuff just keeps ramping up. Well, people's response, by and large, is, as it should be, no war. And you know, there's too much confusion for them to take a strong side in some cases, but generally in favor of sovereignty against war. Well, that's not blackpilling. That's the proper response to have. They're doing everything that they can in the legacy media, the Biden admin and other admins, to confuse people, including the Putin administration, just to be clear. But they're all failing. Wonderful. We're fighting. This is the first TikTok era war. Be very afraid. Jocelyn70, love your analysis on many issues. Thank you from Dublin, Ireland. Thank you. Laser Shark Sushi. My grandfather was a Mormon missionary with Romney in Paris back in the day. Romney was a brown nose for the bishop, and he bothered the Parisians till they beat him up and took his bike. I'm not lying. Under any other circumstances, I would be skeptical, but with Mitt Romney, yeah, I can believe it. I believe your story. There's no reason to disbelieve it. Now, apparently Salty is on Infowars. And Alex Jones is live actually at the moment. Again, I like Alex Jones, so I'm not trying to start a war with him or anything. I'm just saying there's a race to 80,000 subscribers on Rumble. Well, it should be Clankdom. Let's get there, so share it out. If you are not following me on Rumble, please go do so. Link in the description and, you know, all over the internet. Cyber Demon 1542. Hi, Sticks. I am from Romania. We are lucky to be in NATO, but we have far-right groups sponsored by Russia trying to get us out. Might want to read about it. Yeah, I mean, Russia will sponsor left or right-wing groups as long as it's anti-West. It's in their best interest to do so. The idea that there's some massive far-right conspiracy of pro-Russian sentiment, though, a lot of it's shitposting, in all honesty. It's the so-called America Firsters in some cases, I've noticed. Designer V, imagine bombarding Kharkov for a whole day and not being able to even interrupt our cable internet. Yeah, some of the Russian weapons apparently are not working quite as anticipated. El Presidente, if China makes a move on Taiwan, would you support the U.S. government going to battle? No, I support the U.S. making sure that it never happens in the first place by massively arming Taiwan, including effectively coercing the Taiwanese government to arm the population. If the whole Taiwanese population is armed, the Chinese aren't going to do jack shit because they'd be crazy to do it. Sell them all the weapons they want. Even subsidize them. David Hunter, do you know what happened to Gifts Ungiven? I believe that the last content was months ago, but I can't get into the reasons why, because that would be her business. The Lucent Archangel on Twitch. I'd almost be inclined to silence the jerk, but it's a waste of keystrokes. Are you talking about me or about Anomaly or about who? Krog, all I see is the merch page. No, I believe that there. Are you using mobile? It'd be interesting if this whole time I was fucking up the links for people with a mobile experience. That would be something for me. The ultimate boomer move. Whoops, I fucked myself. No, there's all sorts of links there, and there's no merch link, so I didn't put it in wrong. Kimberly Campbell, I think Russia hates NATO because of NATO's push for Agenda 2030, a world socialist agenda. No, Russia is part of globalism. They're not, separate from that. This has nothing to do with Agenda 2030, Agenda whatever, or NATO being wrong. This has to do with Russia decided to attack a neighboring country. They can use the excuse that it was a puppet government, but really the West used the excuse that the former government were puppets. That's sort of even Stevens. I'm simply anti-war. I don't agree with invading anyone. When you're bringing in a full-on military force, it's not actual peacekeeping missions. You're bombing everything in sight. No, I don't support the Russians in this. I also don't support the West getting directly involved. And we can't. There's no way to do so. The time to stop this was years ago, but it was never done. Trump made overtures towards that, but it didn't work because then Biden he ascended to his office, honk honk, as Razor Fist would state, and he didn't intend to keep with that hardline approach. Putin is fighting the deep state, says Ozzy Cossack, according to MT Coiner. Now, Putin's not fighting any fucking deep state. He's just as authoritarian and as much of a rich bitch as any of them. They all use the same Chinese bank accounts, dude. Once you understand that China is the linchpin of the investing world with regards to both Russia and many Western leaders, then you'll understand a little bit better what's going on. That's why we won't sanction China, even though that would actually stop the onslaught because it would cripple the economy there. They're not going to do shit because they have billions of dollars in Russia. Cyberdemon 1542. Also, it seems you're wrong about Orthodox Christians being less bloodthirsty than other denominations. This proves the need for decentralization. While I agree on decentralization, I believe that most Russians are atheists, actually, with the Orthodoxy being the largest religion, but a significant plurality of Russians not believing in anything. If I was, born in the Soviet Union and I saw my whole world collapse and stuff, I'd probably lose my faith too. So, John Cordisco's Corner, thanks for the shout out last live stream. Picked up 20 subs. Thanks. Well, this is technically another shout out. Enjoy. Robert Jenkins, shout out to Mom Kathy Jenkins, who is a huge fan. Oh, that's nice. Only a couple more here. Don't send any more super chats because we're going up on 50 minutes. I'm going to keep the Saturday show a little bit shorter because it's a news roundup and then the super chats. Hell Radio lives. Funny how we haven't heard any COOF statistics in months. All it took was authoritarianism and war to cure it. Yeah, it is interesting. There's a whole lot of news that's all of a sudden missing from the news cycle. The Canadian truckers, COVID, the U.S. economy comes to mind, which will be blamed, by the way, on Russia. Biden did a preemptive thing about that 2 days ago. At his State of the Union, I predict that he will effectively blame Trump. Technically, blame Putin for continuing economic problems in the West, well, we're going to face higher inflation. I realize it'll be painful. I'm going to do everything but what would help, which is a good domestic energy policy. Oil prices will go up. The cost of goods will rise. Like they weren't for the last year, Joe. But a lot of people will give him a pass on that. The problem is that his own fans are too stupid to realize the ruse. Designer V, invasion tip. Make sure to blitzkrieg under 2 days. On the 3rd, the fear and confusion in population starts to wear out. Yeah, Russia, it didn't blitz as quickly as it could have. In theory, it could have rolled into Kiev in 12 hours or something like that with full force. It didn't. I don't know exactly why the delay, to tell the truth. But yes, I think I will go off here. Just a second here. Got almost 1,000 people watching on Rumble. We're doing well there. Again, make sure to share out the link and join me on Rumble if you haven't already. We are trying to hit 80,000 subscribers before Infowars does. All of Infowars. Infowars is big, just to be clear. Alex Jones is a bigger name than I am, so I consider that to be pretty cool. I like the dude. It's a friendly competition. I have no animus towards him. Just before anyone starts a fucking thread on 4chan or something, keep in mind, we covered other news topics. You can go back. And also, again, there is a pinned comment for those of you who may not watch this live, but you're watching the live chat replay on YouTube. The pinned message will be there. Again, that's just for fun. That's just, it has to do with Anomaly and, you know, him getting trolled. Just because I find it funny. For the lulz. What else am I supposed to do? I mean, there's not a lot of happy news right now, in all honesty. So, do a little bit of light trolling. I do a little bit of gardening. The crocuses are coming up along with the alliums and other things. They are sprouting, so I'm getting more energetic, which means probably more live streams and all that other cool shit that you all tune in for. That's about all. Peace out.